Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Total Sports Enterprises. If you happen to be in the proximity of the Pittsburgh area, head on out to the mall at Robinson and join Total Sports Enterprises in their Black and Gold show this Saturday, October 6th. There is an autograph signing with several Pittsburgh Steelers celebrities, including Ryan Shazier, Joey Porter, Levon Kirkland, Jason Gilden, and Heath Miller. For advanced autograph and VIP tickets, they are available at tscshop.com, or you could also see if there's some available the day of the Black and Gold show. Don't forget, Saturday, October 6th, a great event if you want to get some autographs from any of those guys. Or maybe ask Joey Porter what's going on with the defense and the linebackers. That might not.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that's Brian E. Roach on the other side here in the SCU studios. Brian, what's going on?
Oh, it's just wonderful. Looking forward to this. I will actually be at the TSC event, so I'm looking forward to that. And, of course, a very upcoming, exciting Falcons-Steelers matchup. Just bated breath we're waiting for this contest.
Bated breath maybe for a number of reasons. One may be that the Atlanta Falcons are 1-3. This should be home field advantage for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we'll see if they figure that out this weekend when they do host the Falcons. Only one win for the Falcons, 3 losses. The Steelers also have 1 victory, but they do not have 3 losses, so I guess that's the positive. They have marginally a better record. I don't know where to start with this one, to be completely honest. I mean, the Steelers have won the past 2, but what does that really matter? You remember that back in 2014. That was like Jason Worlds with the sack. Remember that guy? I think that was it. That was it, wasn't it? Or Mike Mitchell got hurt. A whole bunch of crazy things, but it was 27-20 Steelers when they played down at now no longer the Georgia Dome, the home of the Falcons. They got like some $1 trillion. I don't think they're into the trillions yet, but they're getting there with some of these brand new stadiums. This mammoth thing with like glass windows and all of that, and they're outside of the friendly confines of the dome. They come to Pittsburgh. It should be pretty decent weather for the game, I would think. It's not going to upset them too much, so you got to find an advantage somewhere else. Hopefully that's the hometown crowd.
Yeah, because I don't see a lot. Look, I've been reading about the upcoming game. I've been thinking about the upcoming game. I've been looking at analysts, and you've got people, that are looking at this and saying, throw out all the offensive record books. This is going to be the shootout to end all shootouts. I kind of don't know if I fully agree with that. Look, Atlanta definitely has a very top-level offensive unit. We think the Steelers do as well. Not that you could prove it by the last couple games, but we think that they do. So they could be right. Maybe this is going to be an absolute, point fest, or maybe it'll end up 6-3. Who knows?
Well, actually, it's a good thing you brought that up, because I was looking at the line earlier today, of course, from one of our former sponsors and partners, MyBookie, and we have a 58 over and under on the line, according to them. And also the Steelers -4, so they're favored. I don't know if that's necessarily a home thing, and Terry was talking about this on the WTF. I didn't get to chip in on that. It's actually because Atlanta, these two teams are like fairly well matched here. Atlanta's 6th in points scored, 116 points. The Steelers have, let me see here, 14 less, so 2 touchdowns and 2 successful extra points after. You got to say that now in the modern NFL. They're 10th overall, so they're very close there, just a couple of scores. But Atlanta is giving up the 30th most points, actually 6 more than the Steelers, 122 to 116. So it's not like the defenses on either team are doing much to stop anyone. However, they're scoring points, and that happens to be Pittsburgh's 3rd in passing. Believe that or not, folks, 47 yards offense in the second half against the Ravens last Sunday night. they're still third in passing, 28th in when it comes to rushing, which me and you, I think this might be the key. Let's get James Conner going. I had the lengthy thing about Le'Veon Bell. I had to say this again with Terry, and I'm not going to repeat it anymore. What you really need to see in order to decide whether or not Le'Veon Bell is the missing link to the Steelers' success for 2018 is just give James Conner the ball. Let's see him get about this was one of my bold predictions, Brian, and it's hitting the site sometime in the afternoon or lunchtime or whatever. And one of the ones I have written down as I flesh it out, I have bullet points right now, but I'm thinking out loud, okay? James Conner needs to touch the ball at least 25 times. I'm saying at least 20 minimum rushing attempts. And then if he gets a little bit more, 22, whatever, 3 to 5 catches. And I think we're going to see the Steelers offense do things and stuff.
I don't disagree with that. Look, a lot of that is going to be predicated on how they start. If the Steelers start off going 3 and out on their first couple possessions and the Falcons just march down the field, well, forget it. Throw Conner out the window because he's not going to get those touches. But I agree with you. He needs to get those touches. They need to essentially establish a running game again. They need to relearn their own identity. And this team is built for balance. And that balance doesn't necessarily mean 50-50, but balance means that in order for the passing game to work effectively, in order for play action passing to work at all, you've got to run the ball. And they have not been doing that since the Cleveland game. They have essentially abandoned it. And I know that they'll say, especially with the Chiefs game, we were down 3 touchdowns. We had no choice but to throw. But they tied those games. You have the opportunity to try and reestablish something. And they haven't tried to do it. I agree. I think if Conner can get 20 rushes, if Conner comes out of this game with 20 touches, rushing the ball, and another 8 or 9 in the passing game, the Steelers are going to win this game. If that's the case.
I think so too. When you look at now, the Steelers obviously will have to stop the run. Atlanta only 21st, 96 yards a game, and the Steelers 72, which, of course, when you're not even giving Conner 10 rushing attempts, and like we said, it was 10 total and then an extra one with Ben's kneel down. There's what are you going to do? You throw the ball 50 times. Now, it's not like the Falcons secondary is very good either. They have a number of guys that went on the shelf. Let me see here. Well, even in the middle of the field, Deion Jones, an excellent middle linebacker. Keanu Neal, safety, a young safety who was looking like a star. They have a few other players as well. Ricardo Allen on IR. Neal's done. Deion Jones's season is done. Grady Jarrett has also been added as, I believe, out with his ankle. I got to relook at the injury report here, but there's a defensive tackle that's off the field too. Questionable, Vic Beasley. I expect him to kind of play. And they also have probable on Julio Jones is with his hand. You have a shin injury for Tevin Coleman, and Devonta Freeman is looking after sitting out 3 games to maybe come back. Mohamed Sanu also shows up with a hip injury. So these guys are really banged up. They've been snake bitten on the defensive side of things. It's the reason why the Bengals just lit them up last Sunday. Unfortunately, it didn't look like, let's put it this way, if you thought the Steelers secondary looked bad, and I know some of you listen to post games like Stan Savran, Charlie Batch, and it's what's sticking in my head right now. He said exactly what you and I said as we were watching it there, waiting to enter Heinz Field for the Sunday Night Football game last week. What did we say? We're like, man, we thought our secondary was bad, but theirs is worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. Look, you've got what people have been arguing between the Steelers and the Falcons. You've got the top 2 wide receivers that people have believed have been the top 2 wide receivers in Julio Jones and Antonio Brown for the past several seasons. You got a very promising rookie in Ridley. And with Juju, there's offensive weapons here through the air, no question about it. And there does not appear to be much defense for those weapons. You take Joe Hayden out of the equation, and it feels like nobody's going to be defending these guys.
I'm knocking on wood. You don't take Joe Hayden out of the equation.
No.
Please do not. It's bad enough like Nat Burhay was basically the backup option for Morgan Burnett, who is still not practicing. We're going to see what the final Friday practice reports are like. Boswell had some freak thing with a cleat to a foot or something, and he got to practice in full. You got the linemen out there. Vince Williams also banged up. The Steelers can ill afford not having one of their inside linebackers out there as it is. The Steelers are ailing just as badly in some spots. But I think as these guys get to play with one another, to kind of build some chemistry there, because, you still got John Bostic, who's relatively new to all of this. Terrell Edmonds is a rookie. Sean Davis is in a new position. And then you got Artie Burns, who is practically a new player. He's forgotten how to play at times, unfortunately, saying that. Cody Sensabaugh comes out as a surprise guy that was on the All-PFF Pro Football Focus team with one of the highest corner grades across the entire NFL last week, which is kind of mind-blowing, because then this week he might be one of the lowest, because it's just inconsistency that's there. And the Falcons certainly now, you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and, the pedigree that they have with some of the guys in their secondary, like Drake Kirkpatrick. Why do I always forget the kid that plays nickel corner? I can't remember his name. Everybody linked him to us. The guy that from Michigan State. What was his name? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll find it in a second. William Jackson III, the other corner, and Matt Ryan still goes for 419 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 134.5 QB rating, and Julio Jones caught 9 passes for 173 yards. Sanu, who used to play for the Bengals, 6 for 111, and you had Calvin Ridley with 2 touchdowns, and Calvin Ridley has been a touchdown machine as of late. It isn't a wonder that the bookies are putting a 58 over-under on this game.
No, it's not at all. As I said, so of course, as a result, it'll be 6-3. We're hyping all this up, and it'll end up 6-3, and the defenses will stymie everyone, and we'll all come out looking like ignoramuses. I'd be stunned. We won't even know what to talk about. We won't be able to speak if that happens. I think at the end of this game, you're talking about the chance to have potentially 1,000 yards in offense between these two teams. Numbers that you're not really anticipating, but kind of numbers that I think the NFL would love to see every week. Because that's how the rules are being targeted and everything else. This could be the NFL's. Maybe this is not necessarily fan-friendly or family-friendly, but this could be the NFL's wet dream.
Maybe wet dream or worse, nightmare, because I'm ready to flock over NHL seasons already. They've dropped the puck, man. Got the Pens beating the Caps, and that's a big thing. I know people are buzzing. Now they're going to expect the Steelers to do something on Sunday. Let me tell you what the Bengals did last Sunday on this Falcons defense. Here's the possessions. If this sounds familiar to you, stop me at any time. Touchdown. This is how they ended. Touchdown. Okay, blocked punt, so on downs. Punt, interception, field goal, touchdown. Sounds like pretty much what everyone's been doing to the Steelers defense. Now, here's what Atlanta did to Cincinnati, who, we hate to say this, but I think Cincinnati's got their stuff together a little bit more right at this point than the Steelers defense does. Touchdown. Gave it up on downs, so they went aggressive. Yeah, I remember we saw that. It was like, what? Why are you doing that? Okay. But at the Cincinnati 44, no doubt. So I guess they felt like, I don't know, if they attempted a field goal, it'd be at the same spot. So touchdown, downs, touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown, field goal, and then the end of the game. That was a shootout. That game ended 37-36. That is a total of 73 points. That's where they're deriving all of this from, because that's Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, I think Gio Bernard. I don't think they had Mixon. Mixon was still hurt. And I mean, we're talking about the Bengals a little bit here, but that's the following week's opponent. So this is really going to be a gauge. You kind of see, what are they going to do against the Falcons? If it's 6-3, both of these teams are going to look silly, and you're going to be really freaking out if the Steelers are on the wrong end of that with 3 at 1-3-1 and have to travel to Cincinnati the following week. They're going to have to get everything on track this time around. I think they do. I think Ben Roethlisberger finally connects. I think Antonio Brown has a big game. I put my money where my mouth is on James Conner already. I think the defense creates a splash play or two, gets some turnovers, and I think that the Steelers, we didn't see a whole lot of penalties last week. Now, John Perry is the referee here. John Perry had both of the Bengals games back in, was it 2015, the one with the wild card, and AB got knocked out, and Perfect and Pac-Man, they got the flags, and they end up winning the wild card game down there. That was, or was that 2016? I'm sorry. But he had two of those games. Outside of the AFC North games, he also had the Ravens game on Christmas Day, which I wouldn't necessarily call a bad officiated game from my memory, but the Steelers still got penalized 10 times in that game. All the other games that he's had in recent memory, there was a Jets game that wasn't so great, and I'm trying to think of the one that he had last year in escaping. It may have been the Jaguars game, the one that they lost at home, but for the most part, 4, 5, 6 penalties from his crew. They don't get into double digits on either side of the ball, at least when the Steelers have been involved. I look at his crew overall. They do not seem to be flag happy. Even this season, they have not penalized either team into the double digits. We may finally have a game where we don't have to look around for a flag after every play and see if something's going awry. And I hope that's the way it's going to be when you have something that's a non-conference non-conference game, non-divisional game here. Might be something that's a little cleaner. I'm going to also predict that the Steelers, no more than 5 penalties. They'll have their stuff cleaned up. The offensive line, hopefully healthy. Those guys get a few games together. You're not putting Matt Filer and B.J. Finney or anybody in there. And maybe that helps get Connor going as well. And we may actually see a victory for once.
I think that we will. I think that the boldest thing you've just said is that there will only be 5 penalties on the Steelers.
Accepted penalties is a big one there, because there could be 2 or 3
that's the
others.
boldest thing you've just said. And here's, I don't look. You know my take on the refs. They all stink. I don't care whether this is a better than average officiating group. My opinion this year is none of them know what the heck the rules actually are, and as a result, until that gets all ironed out and they start to settle down, they're just going to keep throwing flags. But that being said, I think Antonio Brown goes for well over $150 in this game. I think he could have 2 touchdowns. This is going to be a statement game for Antonio Brown because it's Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. He knows that people have been comparing the two of them, and he is going to want to make a statement that I am the guy, not that guy over there, this guy over here. And frankly, I don't know how they're going to cover him with the secondary that they currently have. Look, if Ben can get the ball to him, that's based on what we saw in that Ravens game, Ben's got to be on target. I think he will be. Again, he likes to play against top-tier quarterbacks. Matt Ryan is a top-tier quarterback. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think we could see 2 teams score 40-plus points. It's that, I don't know how the Steelers are going to stop the Falcons, but at the same time, I don't know how the Falcons are going to stop the Steelers. This may be a game that whoever has the ball last wins.
Fair
it's
enough.
Possible.
Yeah, definitely. I see it back and forth, and let me see. I actually pulled up John Perry's thing. It was the Jaguars Week 5 loss, and everybody's going to be like, well, that was a loss. But you know what? Steelers were only penalized 4 times for 19 yards in that game. It was definitely not penalties that cost them that last year. But anyway, yeah. I have AB over 100 easily, 6-7 catches, at least 1 touchdown. Let's not forget, comparable, we were talking already. We're talking Julio. I like to really emphasize the who in Julio. But he has like 500-some yards already this season. Calvin Ridley, the rookie, is making an impact as a wide receiver, kind of in the same way Juju did last year. Juju was like pretty much the head of his class, even though he wasn't a first-round pick. He didn't have that same pedigree as a Calvin Ridley. And Mohamed Sanu, utility guy, if he's healthy and out there, I don't know. James Washington, we haven't seen a whole lot from him just yet. But, I mean, you can't cover all these guys if you're the Atlanta Falcons. We could at least cover one of these guys. You have Joe Hayden. You may have a little bit of safety help. But I think the real X factor, I'm going to call it the Z factor because Zach Celedonia picked him. He knows he's my guy, though. He's my guy. As long as he stays healthy, I'm going to have a number 89 jersey and might say Vance Mack Truck Donald, grown-ass man, if I could fit it all on the back nameplate on there. That's the X factor here, or the Z factor in Zach's case, that the Atlanta Falcons do not have with Austin Hooper. I'm sorry, I think Austin Hooper's he's a Jesse James, okay, and we have a Jesse James, so we have an Austin Hooper and we have a Vance McDonald over here, okay. I love saying it. If he gets going, if Connor gets going, it's just going to open up Juju and AB, and let's face it. They were open to begin with in these games, and they're getting overthrown, underthrown, thrown behind them, timing off, tip passes, Ben holding on to the ball too long. So as long as the Steelers work on this stuff this week, and Randy Fichtner has pretty much alluded to, let's get Connor some touches. Ben has just not been accurate or hasn't been hitting the guys. They know that this stuff is there. It just has to click, and if it clicks, it's going to be electric.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you at all. In fact, I completely agree with you. I think. Oh,
you're not going to be like Terry?
No, I'm not.
Terry, quite contrary.
I'm gonna shut my mouth. I have things I wish to say that I will refrain.
Yeah, be nice. Even though you don't like toast, she got you a 2-slice toaster.
She did, and
not too long ago. So.
And it's been my wife and daughter have used it because we blew up the other toaster that they had. So it's been a very nice thing. And Terry is a very nice person, a wonderful person. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that maybe one of her arguments in that podcast was not really valid.
Yeah, but you know what? She's got her opinion. I don't have to agree with it, but
she's, like I said, she's wonderful.
Yes, very wonderful. So is James Conner, by the way. We need to start calling him the Terminator. When did that ever go away? That was the Pitt thing. You had to call him the Terminator. I think we're going to see him get going. I think a lot of people have been ragging on it and just seeing just an overall lack of production from the Steelers offense. The Week 2 game with Kansas City, totally off script. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers thing, they really didn't get Conner going until the end. They tried to start playing possession and get a little conservative. Look, if you can hear me right now, Randy Fichtner, Mike Tomlin, you guys there with the offense, the whole coaching staff there, you got to put up at least 30. You got to at least get to 40 maybe if you can. First to 40 maybe definitely wins this game because, like I said, the Falcons here, this is funny. I have the stat. Load. Man, I'm telling you, the technology problems have just been – usually the common denominator is user error, which would indicate me, but I actually know what I'm doing with this stuff. The Falcons, 29 points per game, right, Brian? The Steelers give up 29.0. The Steelers give up 29.0. But guess what? The Steelers are only scoring 25.5. And the Falcons are giving up 30.5. So if the Steelers, it's, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's a bend but don't break type of deal. And when you look at the offensively, yards, offensively, total offense, Falcons 410.8 to the Steelers 411.0. Literally 0.2 in the average in the points lineup. This really is going to come down to just, what are you going to do? But which pass rush is going to be more successful? You're going to have Bud Dupree. Mike Hilton's supposedly wearing a brace. He's going to be out there, and we'll see if he can fly off the edge, and they're going to do some of the DB blitz stuff. But I got
something for you.
Bud Dupree.
I got something for you.
Okay.
I got something for you. We know Vince Williams is probably not going to play. He's hurt. He's probably not going to be ready to play.
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
I understand Matthew Thomas may not be ready to start. He may not be ready to take full-time snaps. But you know what? Put that boy in there and let him rush the passer occasionally. Put him in there in specific instances where he's going to blow through that line and put pressure on Matt Ryan. That boy is freaky fast. We both saw it when he was the gunner.
Yeah, he went in for DHB, who is a fast guy to begin with. And he's obviously younger than Darius Hayward-Bay is. And when Darius Hayward-Bay went out and Michael Thomas came in, holy cow. If you're not familiar with Michael Thomas, folks, he's the undrafted inside linebacker, the prospect from Florida State that they picked up, and he made the team because guess what? He's just got this raw talent. And I mean, when you're looking at whether or not you want to put Tyler Matakevich, or more than likely it's going to be LJ Fort, because that's what we saw on Sunday night against the Ravens, subbing in for Vince Williams. Between LJ Fort and Michael Thomas,
Matthew.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry, I called him Michael. Did I do that twice? I'm thinking of the guy from the Saints that played for Ohio State being the Buckeye.
Right. I understand. I get it.
It's like Antonio Bryant,
Yes.
I hate that. That one always drove me crazy. Yes, Matthew Thomas. I'm sorry. Now everyone is already correcting me virtually, even though I can't hear them, is now happy. They're now smiling. You know what? Which one would be any more of a liability? You can't say one or the other. If you're going to have a liability at all, I got to take the guy, not only freaky fast, I think he's got the intangibles to be a difference maker with the defense. It's not like they always have all the 3-4 guys out there all the time, all these inside linebackers and whatnot anyway. So John Bostic will probably have an increased role where Vince Williams has barely left the field this year. I think Bostic is going to be the one there. He's pretty much almost high up there in the NFL with tackles and whatnot. He's actually his grades from Pro Football Focus, even though sometimes we think the wizardry is crazy, he's actually been improved from last season as well. They said the same thing about Sean Davis, even though the eyeball test didn't say that for a week or so there as well. But that may be what do we want? The B factor. We'll give it to you. Oh, that's going to make Zach so mad because he's been on the hype train for Thomas for so long here, but
not longer than us.
Yeah, that's true. Me and you were truthers as soon as we saw that transaction. It was like, yeah, because we were looking at him and we thought he was going to be a late round draft pick. He goes completely undrafted, ends up by a fortune with the Steelers. And the Steelers, there was an interview that went out. Do you know who did the interview? Was it the PPG or the Tribune Review? But I can't remember if it was like Ray Fittipaldo or one of those guys. And I don't know who the properly attribute to it. Joe Rutter, the different beat writers that are there. And Thomas actually said that when the Steelers interviewed him that they had a second-round grade on him.
Right.
Which
I saw that.
Which is pretty amazing. It tells you what the talent is. But more or less what I was getting back to was I don't know who's going to have a better day in trying and getting to the quarterback. Is it going to be T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, or is it going to be Takk McKinley and Vic Beasley? I think Vic Beasley will play by hook or by crook. That's a very tough sell there because it's not like the Falcons' offensive line is all that bad either.
No, the Falcons' offensive line is decent. The Steelers' offensive line is a bit decent. Look, this is the kind of player that Villanueva has trouble with. Be it Beasley, be it McKenzie. I don't know where they're gonna line them up, but they could move them around. But these fast guys who are not overly big, and both of them are undersized. That's why the run is even more important for the Steelers here. They should be able to dominate the line of scrimmage and move these guys around because they're not big guys, but they are fast. And that is a potential issue for Villanueva. And I saw that Gilbert was on the injury report again with a knee. That could be another issue there if he can't play.
Don't make me think about that. Big Al actually was getting some praise too and some love from PFF. It's kind of crazy because you got some guys that are getting decently rated, and you look at the Steelers' record like, okay, what's wrong with this picture? The talent's there. The individual performances are there. Now they got to get together as a team and communicate. Ben Roethlisberger leads the NFL in passing yards. He's been stellar against the NFC. In fact, his past 5 home games against NFC opponents, he has 1,660 pass yards, 332 1.2 per game with 14 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 117.6 rating. And then he has a 98-plus rating in 12 of his past 14 games at home. Of course, we know which of those two are the ones that he didn't have the better rating with, of course. One of them being last week, and then, of course, that Jaguars game. But, yeah, and Ben's fifth with 119 completions. You also have Matt Ryan on the other side of the ball looking for his third straight 300 passing yard game with 3+ touchdowns, 100+ rating. So he's already done that twice in a row. He has 1,150 pass yards, 287 per game, and he's only thrown one pick all season. So this is going to be incredibly interesting. They have the dual-headed monster, of course, if Freeman's back, Tevin Coleman. That's like the thunder and lightning. That's the way it should be with James Conner, and if Bell were to come back. I don't see the Steelers really rotating anybody else as far as running backs. It's pretty much been Conner the whole way. We haven't seen Jalen Samuels integrated into anything. Right. Stephen Ridley barely getting any touches as well. I mean, you look at the matchup with, Julio Jones across the field from Antonio Brown. We talked about the receivers already. We talked about the outside linebackers. These teams, in fact, Dan Quinn and Mike Tomlin, these guys were together in college, right? I mean, it's like they're linked there as well. So Dan Quinn also, former defensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks. These teams are just so eerily similar. It's my homerism. It's my being – I never go against the Steelers. I would say they would go 16-0 before the season started. It's very tough for me to pick somebody other than the Steelers. I mean, you've got the bookies saying 58 over-under. Usually these guys are on the money with that type of stuff. The -4 or whatever could be a tight game. I don't know how many more ways we could say it may end up to be the last guys who got the ball. I don't know what else separates these two teams. Excellent place kickers, probably about the same with the punting game. Even your centers, you got Alex Mack and Marquise Pouncey. These guys have been all pros in their careers as well. They're just so eerily similar that really the only thing that could make this stand out is, secondary play. I think Joe Hayden, I think Vance McDonald, those are the two things for me. And being at Heinz Field has to make a difference this week.
It really does. Look, I'm going to give you my second bold prediction. Ben hits his fourth 500-yard game.
Ooh, you know what? If you're one of these daily fantasy players, and I'm not an expert whatsoever, but you may want to get some action in on this game. Just load up. I think the only defense that's really kind of sucking more than the Falcons or Steelers at this point, giving up pass yards and whatnot, is Tampa Bay. And that's the only other one you might want to get some action on for my fantasy folks. But, I don't know that a lot of people are going to put their money on Ben because they had, the proof's not in the pudding. It's usually –
no, it hasn't been.
Usually it's like, hey, I'm going to go after Calvin Ridley. This guy's been scoring the last couple weeks and everybody's in on that action. Ben's got to snap out of this at some point. I think this team – I think they still have a decent vibe. I don't think the locker room's down or lost. Just these people that say Mike Tomlin's lost their locker room, they don't know what's going on in there. I mean, this is –
crazy.
I went through this with the article. I talked about how, we talked about this on the last podcast you and I did. There was a stretch where the Steelers lost 4 in a row and they ended up being 4-5 at one point a few seasons ago. And, the slow start where they were trading wins and losses back and forth until they had that game at home with the Houston Texans and put up like 21 points in 2 minutes to close out the first half, which was just wild. That was a night game. That was either a Sunday night or I think it was a Monday night game, actually. That was Ryan Fitzmagic as well. It's those things. Those things are always happening. I mean, this was even, last season. You have some of these bumps in the road, 3-2. It's like, oh, they shouldn't lose an OT to the Chicago Bears. Ew, who are the Jacksonville Jaguars? Well, the Jaguars were formerly a really pathetic football team that had a lot of high draft picks, put some money into some free agents and got a new coach and got into ship-shape form with the stout defense and took advantage of Ben with 2 pick sixes. So these are the type of things that happen. I don't think the Steelers are going to end up being like a 13. They can't even be 13-3. I mean, realistically, there's got to be a loss or 2 somewhere on the schedule. But at the very best, 12-2-1 because of the stupid tie. Yeah. So, I mean, they can't even get the 13 wins if they wanted to this season. I'm not expecting something of that nature, but I don't necessarily trust the Bengals to keep with their full head of steam. Was the Bengals really what the Bengals are? I mean, if the Steelers are really as bad as the Falcons defensively, we'll find out in another week. But they gotta get this on track right now. They got 2 games before the bye where they could really make some further adjustments. Maybe he who shall not be named backfield edition. I'm not going to name him anymore. I told you I wasn't talking about him anymore. But if he happens to show up, maybe this thing starts to look a little bit rosier heading into the second part of their season.
Yeah, maybe. Look, this group, we talked about this last time around, but this next set of 4 games is a make or break point for this team. They cannot. I mean, this game is the only one that I'm willing to say they could lose and still recover. They can't lose one of those AFC North games.
No.
They can't. So you're talking about they cannot come out of this 4 games anything less than 3-1. And they really ideally need to come out of it 4-0. And if they don't, we're going to be talking about a season that's in deep trouble. So this is their make or break point, and it's early in the season, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, and then of course one other thing we're going to throw out there too. It's like how can this team improve at all? Well, it's some guys getting healthy. It's Mike Hilton being 100%. Vince Williams being banged up definitely doesn't help. It's Artie Burns maybe turning it around, or Cody Sensabaugh keeping up his high level of play and taking that starting job. Morgan Burnett getting on the field. Ola, you may have forgotten about him. Adonai, did I say it right this time?
Yeah, I think you did.
If you remember him from the preseason, this guy might get some snaps just to see if he can rush the passer when all else fails. Anthony Chickalo's even been in there in a rotational role. This is the way that they could start maybe using some different looks. I still think I'm very high on Terrell Edmunds as somehow he continues to get his hands on the football. Defensively, there is some type of light at the end of the tunnel. We talked about Antonio Brown being down. We talked about getting James Conner more touches, and we talked about Ben being Ben and being sharp. And somehow he's still leading the league in passing yards despite even the shortcomings that he's had. Now imagine if he doesn't have those shortcomings and the offense is going to come alive. The defense can at least batten down the hatches, however my mother says these Pittsburghese things, and they haven't stuck on me because I was an English major, you know what I'm saying? So I say things properly, at least I try to, for all of yins that are out there. So I have the Steelers just because I can't say anything other than having the Steelers for this game, and that's about all I had to say about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't. It's not in me to pick against them. Am I nervous about this game? A little bit. But I think they'll win.
Reminds me of bringing the Colts in a couple of years ago. Back-to-back years. Colts were looking good. Steelers were looking stinky. They're going to whoop us at Heinz Field. Here comes a team from a dome stadium with a high-powered offense, and that worked out very well both times for the Steelers. For some reason, I'm getting that little bit of vibe once again, and I hope I'm right. I would like to think that the Falcons are a little bit better, and I think the Falcons are an underrated team that has a record that doesn't reflect necessarily what they're capable of doing as well, and they could ill afford to be 1-4 as well in this game. So there's going to be a lot of desperation. So be on the lookout for that, folks. So Brian, thanks once again for joining me, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, my buddy.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Enjoy yourself at the TSC event on Saturday. I will be heading down and partying, and we'll be at Heinz Field on Sunday. I'll be tailgating in my usual spot. I can't wait. Throw some stuff on the grill, smell all the smoke. Hopefully we'll have fans that are in a jovial mood. And it'll be interesting to see if any of what are the Falcons? They call themselves a brotherhood or something. It's like they're from Game of Thrones or something. I don't know. But I don't know if the brotherhood travels at all. That'll be interesting to see if there's any Falcons fans in the building. Hopefully there aren't a bunch of Steelers fans that have already given up and tried to make a buck on their ticket. Hopefully it's rowdy and raucous. Fans tried to will them into existence there with the Ravens game, and it didn't work. So going to need you for home field advantage here, Steelers Nation. So
big time.
Yep. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.